We're excited to be talking with both Ken and Owen here today, and we are at the Geo Week conference.
Being able to invest in technology that shortens those timeframes means that you're getting to the act faster.
If you've got a workload kicked off, you're processing a point cloud, and then go work on something else, you can do that unhindered.
You're making your decision faster, you're making your data actionable faster, which is going to give you an advantage.
Now these massive companies that have old computers are starting to try to use the data more and more, and that problem just scales across the organization.
From end to end, we're optimizing all along the way on Intel hardware.
The value chain does not stop at the capture, and the needs of the infrastructure and the workstations don't stop there either.
Welcome to Reality Capture Network. We're excited to be talking with both Ken and Owen here today, and we are at the Geo Week conference. So to start, I'd love to have you guys do some introductions on who you are and your role, just so that people know as we're getting into our conversation.
Yeah, I'll start. So I'm Ken Flannigan. I work for Dell Technologies, and I'm the Director of Alliances and Solutions for the building industry.
Awesome. And Owen?
And I'm Owen Welsh. I work for Intel Corporation, and I am the segment manager for data science and AI on workstations, as well as P&L management for the overall workstation business.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining us. And I know you guys are a sponsor of RCN, which I'm excited to have you guys both here to talk about as well. Maybe, Ken, if you want to explain a little bit about the partnership and why we're focusing on this network and this reality capture.
No, absolutely. So, we're lucky to have Reality Capture Network as part of our Dell Expert Network, which basically gives your listeners and our kind of shared customers the ability to get extra discounts off of precision workstations. And so there's a way to go configure a system for these specific types of workflows and get some extra money off it as well. So definitely see a need for hardware partnership with reality capture. It's not only is it fast growing, it's really, really broad as a term. But we know that local compute workstations are incredibly important to a lot of that work and a lot of the productivity that can be gained and value that can be gained through reality capture. So really happy to have that partnership along with our funding partners, Intel and NVIDIA. And yeah, just happy to support all the education that you're doing.
Yeah, that's great. What excited me about starting this partnership was over the last 10 years, as I've seen laser scanning growing and drones growing and LIDAR growing, is we always get asked questions about computers because people are sitting there loading tons of data, trying to process, and everyone's like, I get the wheel of death, and it's, we're bogging down computers. So to me, I got excited about this is a chance for us to dig in and figure out what is an ideal system, what is an ideal configuration, depending on the different technologies you're using. So it's exciting to focus on that and try to help educate people to make decisions as they're trying to figure out how to best move forward. So what about from your perspective?
Yeah, from the Intel's perspective, we've got a solution for mobile and desktop workstations. We enable the performance and all these experiences that you have when you're trying to ingest, point cloud data, process the point cloud data, and then ultimately, deliver results to your customer. So I'm excited to talk more about mobile and desktop and where Intel plays a role in innovating new technologies there.
That's great. What, for people that are here, so we're at Geo Week and there's tons of people coming to explore new technologies, and a lot of them don't understand really at all when they go to look at a system for processing. What are some things you would tell people this is something you should consider as you're looking for a build when it comes to processors and things like that? Yeah,
absolutely. I would say if you're working in the field and mobility is top concern, right? I would look at, a Raptor Lake, which would be the Intel 13th gen core processor line, either an H or an HX precision workstation. And what's special about these devices is this core architecture that we have in there. It's a hybrid architecture, and it's made of P cores and E cores. And that stands for performance cores and efficiency cores. And we have this really new innovative technology that enables multitasking, and it's called Intel Thread Director. And what it does is it allows you to basically, if you've got a workload kicked off, like you're processing a point cloud where you're cleaning it up and you're waiting for that to be completed, if you want to minimize that and then go work on something else, you can do that unhindered, right? The performance will be there when you need it. It'll move that workload over to the efficiency cores, while those performance cores will be freed up for you to go on and work on things like maybe cleaning up another, data set, or maybe doing some metadata processing on it, right? Or some measurements. I remember the days when I was doing rendering, or I was processing a point cloud from 2D images, and you would kick off that process, and then you would have to go get a coffee.
That's it.
Yeah. Where's the coffee? And then go talk to your colleagues, and then people looking at you like, are you working? It's like, well, yes, but my computer is, its resources are consumed, so I have to wait for that to be done. And that's no longer the case with these new mobile systems.
That's awesome. How new is that technology?
That technology was introduced during our Alder Lake, our 12th gen core processors, and it is being continually improved on generation by generation, where it gets smarter. And how it does that is it's actually AI-based, intelligently directing, the right workload to the right core at the right time. So this AI sort of multitasking is really enabling you to have this performance and productivity through your entire workflow.
Yeah.
The hybrid architecture, the hybrid, performance and efficiency cores, applying to different applications in different ways, or applying to multitasking, super important. But you also see, even on this show floor here at GeoWeek, that there are singular processes that you do that seem like one thing is happening. And really what's happening behind the scenes, it could be, and commonly is that a portion of that compute is going to happen on multiple cores. And then another portion is going to happen on single cores. So it's not necessarily about just one thing. And that's one process. I mean, if you think about the overall software landscape of an industry professional needing to interact with design data, reality capture data, it's never just one thing. It's never just a simple spec. And so I think what we really want to ask people to do is to pay much closer attention to some of these details. I kind of call it like a decoder ring that you have to, look at and say, well, what does that mean? It's all numbers and letters and coded, and even Owen's saying 13th gen core processor, right? 13th gen. Yeah. People know how old their machine is. They probably don't know or have a good understanding of the generational leaps in CPUs that will absolutely impact how long your system is churning. And this is an industry that we are still seeing the coffee break compute, right? It's you hit a button, if my machine's working, I'm working, and you take a lap around the office or you check your phone. Yep. And so, being able to invest in technology that shortens those time frames. I love those coffee breaks, don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But shorten those time frame means that you're getting to the act faster, right? You're making your decision faster. You're making your data actionable faster, which is going to give you an advantage.
Yeah, I've seen that as a user over the years. I feel like almost all the computers just kept getting better, and even as a buyer, I'll admit, right? Yeah. Like, we don't know all the little details of the computers. We're just like, we assume we buy the higher number, and we, hopefully that's going to help us because we're processing big data, but we don't understand all the intricacies of, like, when do we want a Xeon? When do we want an i9? Right. How much does the graphics play in? How much space do we need? What's the difference between the SSDs? And it's the configuration of all those things that can help this process, where even today, I get questions about this all the time because people are still doing that. They're dumping data and they're losing the human productivity because the computer is sitting there crunching because they haven't updated in a long time.
Exactly.
They're working on old machines and the industry, I feel like right now, is scaling a lot.
Yeah.
The desire for scanners and drones is growing. And so now these massive companies that have old computers are starting to try to use the data more and more. And that problem just scales across the organization.
Yeah. What's amazing about some of these reality capture workflows is how they tax even the most seriously equipped workstation. So, Dell has a workstation brand, Precision, and Precision is all about engineering the actual workstation around these components like Intel processors, core processors on our mobile, on our smaller towers, and Xeons on our larger, more scalable towers. But it's a whole system working together.
Yep.
Reality capture folks, they have the most storage that almost anybody configures on some of these machines.
Yep.
Let alone topping out and really being able to use the resources of the newest, fastest processors out there. So it's something that we always see this leapfrog playing with software technology and people pushing the limits of what's possible. Think about just the heat that's generated with all this compute power.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I heard it at your conference in Boise in the fall, stories of people trying to take their machine out into the tundra, right? Out into Edmonton, Alberta in the winter to cool it down because heat is a problem. Heat throttles all that value and that CPU and that frequency down. So you really need the workstation to manage those thermals as a complete system so that you're actually getting out what you're paying for, what you're investing in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the data sizes, I mean, it is... I don't know a lot of other industries, outside of geospatial and stuff personally, but to me, I look at the data that I've seen coming from land surveying and engineering, and like we used to have CAD files, right?
Yeah.
Well, you can have unlimited CAD files. You're not going to run out of space. That problem of then introducing reality capture, where we now have a single project file that's like a terabyte of data.
Yeah.
A lot of major construction companies, architecture companies, engineering, even though they're starting to want to use this data, most computers they have can't even handle that size of a file.
Massive,
It really becomes something you have to pay attention to, and the industry is moving that direction. So I just try to tell people, we're not going cheap when we're looking at the devices we're buying, like scanners and drones. They're expensive, and yet a lot of people are still using the lower end computers. I'm like, you have to go higher if you want to be able to process this level of data.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that's one of the cool thing about our Xeon processors, right? They have tremendous memory capacity, right? I mean, on the Xeon W2400, you can get up to 2 terabytes of memory capacity, right? And then on the Xeon W3400, you can get up to 4 terabytes. That's massive.
That is.
And the more you can store those large data sets in memory, the faster it can process that data.
Yep. And that's the part that I think most people don't understand the technicality of that, which is what I'm excited about, like talking through that and digging into some trials and data and building educational content where we can actually let people know in our community and in our network, like, what do those mean and what should we configure based on our use case, you know, our volume of data and the softwares we use. Even you mentioned that as well. The softwares make a difference, right? Certain softwares can utilize certain, hardware more or less. How do you recommend people go about finding that out?
Well, I mean, I think it's part of the purpose of your network.
Okay,
Matt, we're counting on you, man. It's it's important to educate, and I think we're here really trying to do that. We're trying to educate people about what you actually need to invest in, the total cost. And I'll say a lot of times we're competing for the same dollars as the actual capture technology itself.
Yeah.
But just like a workstation, it's not just one thing. It's how everything works together. So if you're not considering the back-end infrastructure and the workstations that you need and the processors that are going to power those workstations, you're not realizing the full cost of this solution.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing possible. The worst thing is that you're walking into something without the correct expectations, taking on costs you didn't see coming.
Yep.
And so it's just something that we need to engage in the industry with your network, which is why we're here to make sure that they understand the importance of that whole system working together.
Yeah, I think from the Intel side, thinking about software, we do a tremendous amount to enable our new hardware features and to optimize, that performance for these ISV applications, right? And we do that at the driver level for our graphics, but then we also do it at the platform level. And we do that as well with the OS. So from end to end, from OS to ISV, we're optimizing all along the way on Intel hardware. And I think that's really what helps, push performance past, what's possible just with hardware alone, right?
Yeah.
You've got to optimize both ends.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also think that, this conference is a lot about the practitioners.
Yeah.
People that are actually doing the capture. There's a whole other much, much larger audience of the people that need to use the data.
Yeah.
They're not capturing it. They're not taking it from the device onto the machine, but they need possibly a much more robust system to simply interact with that data after the fact. So the value chain does not stop at the capture.
Yep.
And the needs of the infrastructure and the workstations don't stop there either.
Absolutely. I do believe that's right where we're at industry-wide right now, is that over the last 10 years, it's been the people who can do the capture that realize, like, hey, we should scan this building for a project. And there's a guy in the whole company, or there's a company that goes out and captures it and does the processing. And then they have all this data, and the clients that could use that data are like, we don't know how, it's too big. We've never even had a file that's 100 gigs at once. And so there's still this learning curve over that. I believe we're right at the point now that the question mark isn't should we capture data. People are starting to capture so much data. Yet we're still in the point that everybody's like, how do we use it? Who can use it?
Who can,
and a lot of companies are right in the transition period from trying to figure that process out of going from just this small specialized team who has one really powerful computer to the value in this data that's being captured is getting that data in more people's hands. Not just having one guy who can get in and measure stuff, but how can we take that and put it across all the teams so they can get in and pull data and create as-builts and use it in BIM coordination and all these different lanes. So I think the computing piece is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. When I was doing, working with point cloud data and 3D reconstruction in the sports industry, we were having to deal with terabytes and terabytes of data, even petabytes, right? The only way we could get that into each other's hands is by mailing hard drives. You know what I mean? And that, to me, the infrastructure needs to be built around transferring larger data sets faster.
Yeah.
We have some technologies that we're bringing on the connectivity side with our mobile systems with Thunderbolt 4. And we've actually integrated that into Raptor Lake H processors. And you can also get that capability on HX processors through a discrete accelerator. We also integrate Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth, right? Any way that you want to transfer data, we're trying to really, speed up that process. So that you have a more, robust solution.
Yep.
And Thunderbolt carries more also than just data in terms of transferring files. It can also be the one single cable that also supports 2 4K monitors, right?
Yep.
All the while having a fast, 32 gigabit connection to transfer data.
Yeah, I will tell you that, as important as the processing itself, that's a huge question people ask is, how are you dealing with the data, getting it to people? And we literally still have people shipping hard drives around because it's like when you have 500 gigs, you have 1,000 gigs, people don't understand what the best process is. I know it has to do with so many factors. I mean, your internet speed, where you're uploading to, but just like we used to let it sit there and just process overnight, people now are like uploading and just letting it sit there for a day or something, trying to get it onto some cloud platform. Or these are all super, I think, important topics for people in this industry.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad we got to talk with both of you. I appreciate you both being here. I think we've got a lot of good education ahead of us. Anything else you guys would like to share with our community while we're still here?
I think just taking advantage of the partnership that we've created with Reality Capture Network, with Intel support and NVIDIA support, really important. Go and get that decoder ring, go and pay more attention to those system specs, make sure that you're going to get the value out of what you're buying and looking at it from an entire package together, not just capture, not just guy that's a specialist doing the capture, but everyone else is going to touch that data. Very well might need a different type of machine, a different type of workstation, and that's happening on precision workstations.
Absolutely. Yep. That's definitely something I when I try to start, educating someone who's asking about what scanners and what, they often don't ask about processing needs until after they've captured too much data and it's not working on their machines.
Yeah.
So I think upfront education on when you're getting into these technologies, you have to think about how you're going to process it, where you're going to store it, just as much as what device you're going to capture with, because otherwise it really, honestly, if you don't have the processing power, it deflates the value out of the field capture because you're still wasting time, you're still struggling. So it's, again, I think it's a missing piece for a lot of people that needs more attention.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would echo the same things, that Ken is saying. Like, look at the total solution and think about what you actually need, right? Do you need really just one system? Or maybe actually you need more than one system, right? Maybe you need a mobile device for in the field. Maybe you need a Xeon workstation for maybe, ingesting or importing your point cloud data sets. And then a third machine for maybe doing reconstruction or processing, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So you might need more than just one thing. And the thing that we're trying to get across is we have a solution for you. Whatever you need, there is a solution. The capacity is there. We're also working with other technology vendors like NVIDIA, for example, for third-party power sharing in our mobile devices, right? So that if you need more power on the GPU or you need on the CPU, it diverts power back and forth so that you can get the performance when you need it with longer battery life.
Yep. Yeah, those are great points. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's what over the years we started like manually doing ourselves when we were in service side is, does everybody need the same system?
Yeah.
No, you can kind of fine tune them based on what you're doing. If you're utilizing the data, you're visualizing or you're modeling, or if you're processing drone data or you're processing scan data, that's the part that I think we still have to consider is like, what software are you using? And maybe it is a split of those, traveling and processing on the go versus big data sets back at the office.
Exactly.
So hopefully that is what we can educate people on, is like, what's the ideal system for you based on your use case?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you again both for joining us and sharing some insight. Look forward to more of these conversations ahead.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.